Hi everyone, and welcome to the Highbury Squad with a bit of a twist. When I was hosting my British Soccer Diva shows, I had a series called A Conversation With, and it was an up-close and more personal view of the game with individual players and managers. And the reason why I was kind of inspired to kind of get back to this was for many reasons. Number one, I love the one-on-one approach, and also as a fan, I think this season more than ever was the first season Arsenal fans were maybe a little bit afraid of being in a relegation battle. And so I always thought it was super interesting to get the perspective of not only the fan, but the player in terms of what that feels like. So it kind of prompted me to reach out to Mr. Kevin Campbell, and hi KC, and thank you for joining me today. And the one game that I've chosen to talk to Kevin about is the most famous Survival Sunday game of all time, in my opinion, which was West Bromwich Albion against Portsmouth, which at the time seemed like an insurmountable hurdle to overcome. So before I kind of get stuck into things, welcome KC, and thanks for joining me today.
Hi Sophie, good to have you. Good to be with you, love.
Thank you. All right, so the 2004-05 season, it was a little bit crazy. It was the first time, KC, that we were introduced to the special one. Chelsea win the league by 11 points. Man United, Arsenal, Everton, Liverpool all make the Champions League. Bolton and Middlesbrough, think about where those clubs are today, qualify for the UEFA Cup. Thierry Henry is the top scorer with 25 goals. Andy Johnson second with 21, and Pires third with 14. The largest home win that season was Arsenal 7, Everton 0. KC may remember that one a little bit. Actually not a good season for kind of the biggest home and away wins for KC's ex-clubs. The biggest away win was Liverpool beating West Brom 5-0. But the high-scoring game, I think we all remember, was Tottenham 4, Arsenal 5. And of course, the mighty Gunners went on to win the FA Cup against Manchester United. KC, that was quite the season. People kind of get caught up in the Premier League and what's going on right now. But Gary Megson was sacked that season. In fact, other managers who were sacked, Claudio Ranieri from Chelsea, enter the special one, Mr. Mourinho. The great late Sir Bobby Robson, Newcastle, Graham Souness. Here's a name for you. I don't know if anyone will remember this guy, but Jacques Santini, sacked by Spurs, and Martin Jol came in. A little bit maybe the resurgence of Tottenham, and I think Martin Jol doesn't get enough credit for their rebuild. And Gerard Houllier, Liverpool, and Rafa Benitez. We'll pick it up with KC, though, from the time where Brian Robson, we were talking about Sir Bobby Robson earlier, but Brian Robson took over from West Brom. So, KC, you find yourself in a very unique situation. Had you been in a relegation battle before? I know there were some struggles maybe with other clubs, but had you been in this type of situation before?
Yes, I had. When I was at Forest went down, and then we went straight back up the next season. But that wasn't really a relegation battle as such, because I was injured at the time, so it's difficult to make your mark when you're injured because you can't play. So, really it was, I know the mentality, but this was really my first, Everton, when I first went to Everton, that was a relegation battle.
But this was like, the lifeline. Here's where I want to pick it up with you, KC. Robson comes in, the Crystal Palace game. Do you remember that? Do you remember that Crystal Palace game?
What, 2 each?
Yeah. That.
Of course I do.
Okay, so you scored your second goal in 2 games, if I remember correctly, because you were going through a positive February stretch. A goal from you in the 82nd minute.
Still something like 10 minutes to play. It's an awful long time to defend in your penalty area. Gira with the cross. Powell, who's been behind everything. Powell is struggling now for Crystal Palace. Here's Richardson. Richardson's found Gira.
and then Earnshaw scores in the 91st minute. You're winning 2-1. 3 points are looking guaranteed.
Agony has turned to ecstasy, but the ecstasy of the equaliser has now turned into desperation for a winner. And there's time. You could barely put a price on a winner here for either team. Schumacher. Kevin Campbell. Onside Robert Earnshaw! And he's won the game! Can you believe it? Robert Earnshaw for West Bromwich Albion. 91 minutes played, and they are in front. Absolute heartbreak for Crystal Palace. Robert Earnshaw will never forget that goal. He will never be allowed to forget that goal.
But a goal line scramble sees Palace grab a point.
Borrowdale with a free kick. It might just drop in there as well. Hilati! It's Hall, it's in! Fitz Hall has equalised for Crystal Palace. It's 2 each.
Talk me through that game a little bit, and you're finding yourselves in that moment. Still, there's 3 months left, but it's games like that kind of, you either fear the worst or it defines a team.
Well, it was a typical relegation 6-pointer. It was at the Hawthorns. We fancied ourselves to win the game. We knew if we win this game, it sets us up for a real stint at staying up. You know, Palace were another team who were in and around it. So, you know, as far as we were concerned, it was a great opportunity for us to beat them. And I think we go a goal down.
Yeah.
Or we go a goal down and then we equalise and then we put our noses in front through Ernie. And, you know, I remember we were off to, because it was the international week after that. So we were going away to Florida, to Orlando, the next day. So to be able to go with a win under our belt would have been fantastic. But as you know, these kinds of things throw all kinds of curveballs at you. Mm-hmm. And I think it was Fitz Hall who scored late on. I think it was last minute of the game or whatever it was. He scored. It was a goalmouth scramble. He scored, and that pegged us back. It felt like we lost the game, obviously, because we were in the ascendancy. We were winning the game, but you know, it weren't so much a knock on the confidence, but we believe we were the better team and we should have won the game, but we just couldn't see it through, and that was our problem. That was our issue. But It's amazing what happens. We actually licked our wounds. We went away, and you know, we had some start conversations with each other, some good team meetings, and I think after that, I became captain.
I was going to say, at what point did Robbo make you captain?
It was after that. It was after that game. It was when we went to Orlando. We went to Orlando. We got a good squad, good guys. And
did you believe in them at that point, Casey? Did you, when you always go into a team, but also you're going into a team as a veteran and someone with a lot of wisdom and pedigree in the game? Did you feel it? Did you feel like you had to work at it? And then, especially when you become captain, the difference between just being a player or a captain, what is that like? Obviously, we've seen at Arsenal and we've been arguing as fans over the last season who should be captain and what that means. But you've been a captain, and you've been a captain in a Premier League team. Talk us through that moment a little bit where that transition happened.
Oh, 2 Premier League teams. So
yes,
you know, it's difficult it's actually difficult for the common person to understand what the difference between a player and a captain is. But you know, when you're a captain, everything kind of runs through you. So, for instance,
what do you mean by that? Because we hear players say that a lot. What do you mean? Everything runs through you. Game day tickets, line with the manager.
Yeah. That's all the stuff on the periphery. But I'm talking about it's a bit like you're the manager of the team, but you haven't got the manager's name, because when you don't just think of yourself, you have to think of all your teammates. You have to think of the players that ain't playing. You have to kind of manage expectations of people. You've got to try and keep the camaraderie tight. You have to think of players who are playing, players who ain't playing, players who ain't even part of the squad, because what you need positive energy around. And if you haven't got positive energy around, then there's going to be breakdowns. And that's what you don't want. So there's a lot more for you to think about. You're trying to keep balance. You're trying to keep players focused. You're trying to keep everybody on it, as it were. Some need an arm around them. Some need to kick up the backside. And you would expect the manager to do that. But the manager can only do that certain amount of time. It's the captain and the vice captain and the elder statesman of the dressing room which do that. And when I went to West Bromwich, I looked at the dressing room and I'm thinking, well, there's some top players there, some good lads, some very good talented players. You look at the staff, Brian Robson was there, Nigel Pearson is number 2, Craig Shakespeare, Michael Appleton. So you look at there's a lot of talent and a lot of knowledge around the game. But probably one of the most important things why Brian Robson got me and we spoke. We actually never spoke football. We spoke life when we first sat down.
Wow, that's so cool.
We spoke about life. We didn't even discuss football, and then we got to the end of it, and he says, "I'll see you at the training ground tomorrow." So I said, "Yeah." And I got home, and I remember saying to the wife, "I'm going to West Brom tomorrow." She said, "Well, have you spoke for?" I said, "No, I met Brian Robson." And we spoke for a couple of hours, and we didn't even talk football. So we just laughed about it. But it was the character that he wanted to find out about. And
wow,
you have to know the characters in the dressing room, and that's why I think we've actually spoke about the Arsenal, etc., and who should be captain. And being popular isn't necessarily just being a captain. You've got to be able to manage. You've got to be able to manage expectation. You've got to be able to be that leader. You've got to be able to be the person who sets the tempo not only of the dressing room, but of the thought process. And this is why, the things that happen with Granit Xhaka, that's why he's got some captain material in him, but there's other things that weren't captain material, like what happened with the fans. So there's a lot more to being a captain than just a name.
I just want to follow up real quick. I know the goal is to talk about the Survival Sunday experience, but when you talk about the captain, and this is what I love about football conversations and the directions they can take you in, is how much of all that did you learn from Tony Adams? Because obviously we have a lot of Arsenal fans that listen to this, but also I think even rival football fans would agree that Tony Adams is undoubtedly one of the greatest captains of all time of any team, period. How much of that did you take?
Not only captain, Sophie, leader.
Yeah, leader. And there you go, hand in hand.
And leader. Yeah, you see, and this is where we're going. A captain and a leader are not the same.
Mm-hmm.
A captain and a leader are not the same. Let me explain something to you. When I made my debut at Goodison Park for Arsenal against Everton in '88, the racism that was coming down on, I think there was, 6 black players in the Arsenal squad at the time. So what you tend to, you get to the ground and all the kit men, Tony Donnelly and everyone start putting the kit out. So the players then go onto the pitch to see what the pitch is like and check. So we were all on the pitch. And there was some racism being chucked at the black players. And Tony Adams came over and said, "Listen to what they're saying about us." And I never forget that. That ain't captain, that's leader.
Wow.
See? You see the difference?
Yeah. Yeah.
So a captain could have said, we'll shut them up or whatever, blah, blah, blah. No. The leader said, listen to what they're saying about us. And let's make sure we don't forget it. That's a leader.
Mm-hmm.
That's leading by example.
And Brian Robson also.
I understand that. I understand about captain and leaders, but Tony Young was not only one of the greatest captains, but he was one of the greatest leaders of men.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's important, isn't it, in football? Is you at the end of the day you have to lead men. You've got to lead them in a direction, and you've got to lead them into battle, and they have to believe in you. So in a very short space of time, Casey, not only did the great Brian Robson, because let's not kid ourselves here, and for all you young millennials who don't know, just go Google it. But I'm sure most of you know your football history and understand who Brian Robson is, not only to Manchester United, but to football, to English football as a whole, to world football. Is it because at that point, Casey, obviously you're a veteran and you've got all the wisdom, but for him to kind of see that in you in a short space of time, and for you to kind of it's not easy, let's be honest, it's not easy to get guys to believe in you, is it? I mean, as if you're a great leader, yes, but you still have to convince a starting 11 and a supporting group to kind of, follow you to the end of the earth. And I think Brian Robson coming in and you coming in almost changed the history and the course of history for West Brom that season.
Well, yes, you can say that for sure. I think Brian Robson was he was captain fantastic when he was a player. He was a very good leader as well for Manchester United, and a good manager. But he knew what it took. That was the key. And that's half the battle. When you know what it takes, and probably looking around the dressing room, he had good lads, but maybe didn't have the lads who maybe didn't have a character there who could bridge the gap. Because I think one of the things what you have to be able to do, Sophie, you have to be able to connect with the staff and the players. And you have to be that bridge. And being an experienced player, I've played against Brian Robson many times. He knows what that Arsenal-Man United rivalry is like. And he likes the character. We spoke about it, liking the characters who you're playing against. You want to beat them, but you respect the characters that you play against. So to have some of that in the dressing room is what he needed. So,
yeah,
as I say, he didn't make me captain straight away. I had to find my own feet, but I integrated pretty quickly because I knew quite a few of the players, etc.
And every manager needs his muse, doesn't he? Every manager has to have, that player. And we've seen it over the years, these great relationships.
Kevin, I knew him from years before as a good, solid pro. But he's probably done better than what I could have imagined, because it's not just the performance on the pitch. It was the way he pulled the lads together as well, around the dressing room, and, and got this spirit going.
I want to take you to a particular game before I take you to the night before the Survival Sunday game. Yeah. Because you've played in a lot of rivalries in your career. You've done it at Arsenal, you've done it at Everton, you've done it in Turkey, and you've done it in the Midlands. That Birmingham game, correct me if I'm wrong, Casey, and you're so good with your history, and I love how you do correct me sometimes. You grab a brace. And it felt like that was the time for West Brom fans to believe again.
Long, probing. Horsfield forces the air out of Cunningham. And he has unnerved the centre of the Birmingham defences. No doubt about that. His old club, Jeff Horsfield. Greening. Looking at Kevin Campbell! And West Bromwich Albion have a 2-goal buffer. It would take superhuman effort to keep them in the Premiership. They know that. But is this just a start for renewed hope?
This is a double question. The first is, what did that feel like? And how did it compare to playing in a Merseyside derby, a North London derby, a derby, in Turkey? Because as we've all seen in these rivalries, and especially with the Jack Grealishes of the world and all those who came before him, that Midland rivalry is, that's pretty intense.
Yeah, it is. It is intense. Look, it's every derby means so much to the locals, and when you are in a relegation battle, it takes on even greater significance because your rivals want to see you in despair. And when you're the team who's not in the ascendancy, it obviously puts extra pressure on the team and individuals, etc., etc., etc. But it can be quite liberating because if you can get over the line and you can win the game, not only does it give a boost to the fan base, but as players you move on to the next level because handling pressure is what it's all about. That is the key. It's handling pressure. Can we handle the pressure? And if we could handle the pressure, we're fine. And you find out a lot about teammates and squad in those moments, and that we seem to come through with flying colours in some of these games.
Yeah,
that's why I knew we've got the right characters. Mm-hmm. There's certain things we have to work on as a group, but we can get there. You know, it was, as I say, it was the greatest achievement in football that I done was be involved in the Great Escape. Because when you're winning, when you're at Arsenal, you're Everton, like huge clubs, you know, you're expected to win. You're expected to do whatever. But West Bromwich Albion had been a yo-yo type club, and everybody wrote the team off. So when you know, it's like a jigsaw. Every time you start to find a piece and you put the piece in, and that Birmingham game was another little piece of the jigsaw that we needed to find in order to complete the picture. And we're so proud.
You know, your job, if we put it in, you know, kind of layman's term, your job was to score goals. And to you, Casey, is so satisfying when you score goals because you're doing a great job. Did it have a difference? Did it feel the same way scoring that brace in the Midland Derby as it did scoring against Liverpool at Anfield? Different levels, maybe different feelings, but similar emotions, just maybe obviously the level of scoring against the Liverpool is different, but the magnitude of that game against Birmingham, different kind of vibe.
Yeah, look, there's rivals and there's rivals, but there's importance of goals. I could never take away from scoring a winner in the Merseyside derby, especially at Anfield. That's for sure. But when you're in a relegation battle and you're up against one of your rivals, and everybody knows the magnitude of what 3 points would mean, and you know you play your part in getting those 3 points, I think that's really, really important. That is key to it all. And by the way, I only got one in that game. I didn't get
okay.
Two would have been nice.
Okay, so my research was a little bit off there. I thought you got a brace.
Yeah,
but
the first one was scored by Neil Clement. So
you sure it didn't deflect?
yeah. And listen, believe you me, I would claim it.
Totally. Let me take you before we get to the game, the night before, because I think this is what all fans want to know. I think one of the things as a fan I always crave is I just want to be a fly on the wall. I want to know what they're eating the night before. I want to know where they're sleeping, what they're wearing, what's their ritual. Do they have superstitions? As I said before, you've played in some gargantuan games. The night before this one, what's Kevin Campbell doing?
I was at home, put the kids to bed. I was just doing my normal stuff, just watching sports channels, just chilling out, just normal. It was.
So you didn't do anything different, or you didn't change your routine at all, right?
No, not at all. I think that's when you delve into danger and madness, because the moment you start changing it up, is when you're making a rod for your own back. So I like to keep things pretty simple. I like to keep things, as routine or as normal as possible. I think because if the game was a 3:00 kickoff, I would have stayed down in a hotel. But because it was a 4:00, all the games kicked off at 4, I stayed at home and I travelled down to the Hawthorns in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
So I had done my normal, I had my cereal and had my water and stuff like that, and went for a walk and came back. I had my shower, put my suit on. But the one thing I did do, which I could tell you, because I was that confident in the team, I had a nice stash of expensive champagnes. So I brought 6 bottles down with me. My cousin Freddie was driving my car, so I was obviously planning. You got to plan for it, because you don't want to stay up and then you're stuck because you've had a couple of drinks and then you have to drive. So Freddie used to drive for me.
You were well prepared, Casey.
Well prepared. So what I'd done, I had my bag and a case with the champagnes in. So there was a couple of bottles of Cristal, couple of bottles of vintage Dom Perignon, and I had one Magnum Laurent Perrier Rosé, and there was Perrier Jouet Rosé vintage. So I brought 6 bottles down with me. I always tended to get to the ground first anyway. So Dave, who's no longer with us, and Bamba were the kit men and stuff like that. So I got into the dressing room. So I said, Bams, I want to hide these from the lads, but I want to make sure they're cold for after the game. So
wow, KC, you were really super confident.
Yeah, I was confident because I knew the lads. I knew how we prepared. I was confident that we'll beat Portsmouth. That this was the most important thing, I think, because if you're not sure, if you're not confident that you're going to actually win your game, you have no right really to survive, because we knew it was out of our hands with some of the other games. I think Fulham were playing Norwich, Southampton played Manchester United, and the biggest conundrum game was the Charlton v Crystal Palace game. Mm-hmm. But we were bottom of the table at the start of the day, so it was if all the results went our way and we didn't do the business, we don't deserve it.
It's quite incredible when you look at the different scenarios and the results needed from that day, and the fact that you guys were at bottom. So you've taken us through the night before, and now we get to the morning of. But all week, I'm assuming that in training, you've talked about this, and it's always interesting when you hear managers, for example, that are going for the Premier League title or any title. We just take it one game at a time, one game at a time. But was there a case where you guys had to look more ahead than just at that one game at a time? And then for the actual day, did Brian Robson have a George Graham 89 style game plan? i.e., here's how it's going to go, here's what we're going to do, and literally visualized it. Talk us through the morning of the preparation.
Well, I'll tell you about the week first, because you made a really good point regarding the, guys who are going for the Premier League, say one game at a time. And I think that's one thing myself and the management team, Brian Robson and Nigel Pearson, etc., we had to get the players to relearn that mentality. because it's easy to jump ahead and look, we got, look at our next 4 games, so to speak. But it really is one game at a time. And we have to, and whether we win it, we lose it, or we draw it, we have to leave it behind and move forward to the next. That's what we had to do. And that's what our kind of game plan was in the end. Win, lose, or draw. Don't have it with you the whole weekend. Yeah, we're disappointed, but we've got to bury it and move forward. Because if you can get caught up, this is what happens with some teams. You get caught up in the defeats. And sometimes how you lose, when you're down there, sometimes how you lose is probably worse than the actual defeat. So you can't afford to hang on to that. It's like a backpack of bricks. You've got to let it go. You've got to unstrap yourself and let it go. So you don't get too high when you win. You don't get too low when you lose. And if you draw, you just move on. And that's what we done. And Brian Robson and Nigel Pearson, all these guys were fantastic at that. We had a fantastic camaraderie between us, and we had loads of fun. And we got to the last game. So the week of the last game, actually, we didn't even discuss the game until probably the Thursday. We trained as normal.
The Thursday before the Sunday. That was Wow.
Yeah.
With everything at stake.
Yeah, with everything at stake, because we'd already been written off. We played Manchester United a week before at Old Trafford. And I'd never forget being in the team meeting, and we were watching Soccer Saturday, and they said, well, this is West Brom are down today. And then we had the team meeting after, we made it a point. Have you heard them? They disrespect us that much that they don't even give us a chance. And, this is the Premier League. We know going to Old Trafford's daunting, but Brian Robson's an ex-captain. A lot of big players have played there, have won there, have played in epic games there. So what have we got to fear? We've got nothing to fear. We end up drawing the game 1 each. We really should have had another penalty. We should have had a penalty. Robert Earnshaw got brought down in the box. We should have won the game.
Didn't you think after that, is that one of those games where you think to yourself, wow, what an opportunity missed, we were kind of unlucky?
No, because it was down to a refereeing decision. And
would VAR have changed that today?
100%.
It's crazy, 100%. Isn't it? So crazy.
But we were just where we wanted to be going into the last game of the season. We wanted to be in. We always said to ourselves, let's make sure we're in there with a chance of staying up. And
you did.
It's going to boil down to that Man United game and our mentality. We knew it. It's going to boil down to that game. And we got through it. We were disappointed after the game, but hey, again, we've got to let it slide, because we got a league to stay in the following week. So, the build up was good, fun games and all that kind of thing from the Monday to the Wednesday. We trained. We came in. I don't think we trained. We just done a light session on the Thursday. We were off on the Friday, and then we trained on the Saturday.
When did you get your game plan? When did you know how Brian Robson... You were playing at home.
Yep.
You knew you could beat this Portsmouth team.
Yep.
Did he plan it out like George Graham did in '89, going back to that a little bit? Or was it a case of picking up from the Manchester United game and taking it from there? Talk us through that a little bit.
Yeah, I think the mentality was, guys, we've worked so hard to get ourselves into this position. We know it's not rocket science now. We know what we've got to do is take care of business at home. That's what we've got to do. The crowd are going to be with us. We're playing against a Portsmouth team who haven't got anything to play for. But we know if we don't take care of business, we can come unstuck. So it's not about the opposition. It's about us. It's all about us. And we believe that we've prepared. We believe we're ready. We believe we're ready for the challenge. So it's just making sure we are doing what we're supposed to do. We defend properly as a team. We attack as a team, and we get those a goal or two in front and win the game. And if the worst case scenario happens and we've done the business, there's nothing we can't complain.
Were you nervous at all, Casey?
Not at all. No.
Were you ever? It wasn't in your character to ever be nervous, just because in our conversations, it's like, this is what I do. I love it. I thrive on this, as opposed to nerves. But did you see any afraid faces when you're standing in front of all those men that you're leading? Was there any necessity to calm anyone's nerves, or were you guys ready for the game?
There was no, and this was the great thing about that great escape, because we'd worked on our mentality, we worked on everything building up to that time. That's why I was super confident. That's why, hid the champagne away in the ice and because everybody, we joked, we laughed, we joked, we done the same things that we always do. We listened to the Any Given Sunday speech.
Al Pacino, yeah.
Al Pacino
nice.
puts on. We always kind of listen to one of those sayings, and we wanted that one on. It's a game of inches, and we know it's a game of inches. And again, there was nobody would. Well, I didn't see anybody that was like nervous or panicking. I just think there was a determination amongst the group to finish what we'd started.
And after the first half, it's 0-0. Yeah. It's 0-0, right? So you go into half time.
Mm-hmm.
Who leads the conversation? Does anyone say anything? That's the moment fans really love being the fly on the wall. Is someone doing and recreating that Any Given Sunday Al Pacino speech again, or is it calm? And what's the moment like then?
Well, the moment's actually pretty good, because we know. Look, the game's kind of ebbed and flowed. We've had a couple of chances. They've had a couple of chances, but we know this is the time now. So I think Brian Robson and Nigel Pearson said a few words. I said a few words, got up and said a few words to the team about, hey, listen, we've got it. We've got the belief. I said, we're going to win the game. That's all we need to know now, guys.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to win the game, and then let the chips fall where they may. And everybody was pretty calm, and then, we all come together, and out we went for the second half. There was no major meltdown.
Had you guys at halftime discussed the Jeff Horsfield substitute, or was that something that just happened as part of the course for the game in that second half?
Yeah, it was always going to be part of the course, because obviously, the more we start to chase the game, Jeff Horsfield's a really good player, an aggressive player, cause all kinds of problems for the opposition as well. So, we then have to start taking a bit more risks by bringing the likes of Horse on, and bringing Horse on turned out to be a masterstroke.
Mm-hmm. And it was quite a goal, right? It was a lovely volley.
It's a substitution that is loaded with attacking intent. Brian Robson looks as though he's going to go three up front for the rest of this. Off goes Jonathan Greening. His season's over. On comes Jeff Horsfield. A battering ram to test out the Portsmouth back line. Gear up. Steadied himself. Horsfield! Jeff Horsfield's first touch of the ball! West Bromwich Albion breakthrough! What a substitution!
And is it true? A lot of the times everyone thinks that players are all best friends and stuff, but also you're not best friends with everyone at work. But Jeff Horsfield seemed like that kind of working class lad. Apparently he was plasterboarding until 10:30 the night before the game. Did you build and cultivate a relationship with him, or he seemed like kind of that guy that would come on and be the hero in certain, a bit like Kevin Phillips. He felt like that kind of player. The old Bolton striker, Kevin Davies, he was kind of built that way, wasn't he, Casey?
Yeah, Horse, we're going back now, Sophie, to, being the captain. The captain, you have to be able to maneuver with everybody. And Jeff Horsfield was an experienced player. He was a fantastic person to have in the dressing room. He really was a good lad, humble lad, came from humble beginnings, grafted for everything he got in the game. And, to have somebody like that in the squad and in the team was amazing, because you can rely on Jeff to put himself about and give 100% or 110%, as some say. If any time he actually got on the pitch, so whether he started or whether he came off the bench, he'd always give 110%, and he was a fantastic foil. He was a fantastic person to have. So, I really got on with Horse. I got on with everybody at West Brom, because it was a really, really good set of lads.
Nice.
It really was.
And Kieran Richardson, kind of, if I remember, there was a back heel again from Horsfield, kind of shows you substitutes and the impact they can have on the game. And I think one of the things I'd love to know, because as viewers, KC, we're watching the match, and on Survival Sunday moments and, major moments where multiple games are being played at the same time, whether it's the World Cup or the Euros or Copa America, whatever it is. How much did you guys know about the scores, in particular the Crystal Palace Charlton game? Because I think there was a muted celebration really when Richardson scored, because I think people were feeding off the fans around the stadium when Charlton, Andy Johnson, scored his penalty. How much did you guys know about that at that time?
The atmosphere has all fallen a little flat at the moment. The news from the Valley is not good for West Bromwich Albion. Crystal Palace are in front by 2-1. It's out of West Brom's hands at the moment.
Well, we don't really know what's going on when you're on the pitch. You can sense the edginess in the crowd and the atmosphere.
So, Robson, no one's telling you as captain, hey, no one's feeding that to you. At that time, It's not the game plan, right?
No, it's not. And they would be crazy to do that, because what you don't want to do is upset the momentum. You don't want to upset the balance, what's going on. We were playing very well. We just gone 2-0 up, etc. And whatever was going on in some of the other games, obviously, you get told at half time what's going on in some of the games. I think Fulham were giving Norwich a torrid time. I think the Manchester United Southampton game was, 1-0 to United at half time or something like that. And the Charlton
Crystal Palace game
was 1 each, I think, at half time or something like that. So again, it was about us doing the business and making sure we see it through, because what we didn't want to be able to say is, we had it and then we let it slip. We wanted to finish off, and we finish off in style. But unfortunately, we finished off in style, but there was kind of an impasse, because when we got to the end of the game, I think there was a delay. There was a delay at the Charlton Crystal Palace game.
There was, yes.
So I don't know if anybody's seen the pictures.
It was crazy, Casey. I mean, I have to say, this is why I picked up, and I wanted to pick up this conversation with you, because, we've talked with Amanda on our WhatsApp group, but also on our pod, when Arsenal were in real kind of trouble, and we were 5 points, I think, from the relegation zone. And for the first time ever, we were thinking, is this something we're going to have to think about and worry about? And as a West Brom fan that day, Norwich, Southampton, Palace, Charlton, all those fans who go through that season after season. And then there's this delay and there's this wait. I mean, did that moment translate through? You guys, did you feel that?
Yeah, of course we felt, because we'd done the business then.
And you're just
You know,
waiting.
yeah, we'd done what we needed to do. We won our game, so obviously the crowd at the Hawthorns were delighted.
Look at the West Bromwich Albion supporters. The news from the Valley is that it's Charlton 2, Crystal Palace 2, and West Bromwich Albion are staying alive again. Back with Thomas Kuszak. Mike Riley blows for full time. It's all over at the Hawthorns. Brian Robson's baggies have done everything they can. Jeb Horsfield, the hero. Kieran Richardson with his second goal of the game. Now they sit and watch and wait and hope. Ricardo Shimika, mobile phone glued to his ear. He's got the commentary from Charlton. What will be the news from South London? Jonathan Greening thinks they've done enough. The cheers have gone around the Hawthorns. The news has come through. Brian Robson's baggies are staying in the Barclays Premiership.
But then
Had the pitch invasion happened at that point?
but it was a bit subdued,
right?
because we found ourselves waiting around on the pitch. The fans, I remember myself and Brian Robson just being there. They wanted to interview us, but they couldn't really interview us because Charlton and Crystal Palace was still being played. And it was 2-2 at the time. So at 2-2, we were staying up. And Crystal Palace were pushing, so you could imagine the emotions. Everyone was like, oh my God, Palace have just gone close and stuff like that. So I think it was between 6, 7, 8 minutes we were waiting, for the final whistle to go at the Valley. And, when the final whistle went, and because don't forget, the Portsmouth fans were booing their own team when they started to attack us.
They had a torrid season. That was a very bad season.
No, they weren't booing their own team because they were upset with them. They were booing their own team because if they knocked us down, that could have kept Southampton
up. Yeah, exactly. Which is
it was incredible.
Wow. I mean, what a time, what a season. So in the end, we get to the final whistle. The other matches are all over. And hey presto, West Brom have managed to create the same type of euphoria that City did in that QPR game. I mean, it was amazing in a different way, different bottom part of the league, but the same euphoria and history at Christmas time. You guys were rooted at the bottom of the Premier League. No team had ever come back to survive from that.
That's right. And Sophie, when we were in Orlando, that was one of our team meetings. And I took it.
Oh, wow.
And it was about, look, guys, we're at West Bromwich Albion and we're not going to win the league on record points. We're not going to buck the trend and qualify for Europe and all this kind of thing as we are. I said, but there's one bit of history that we could have our names attached to that can never be taken away. And I said, if we can do it, we got to engage our brains here, guys. And I said, we've got to be able to do it. But if we can do it, we're Premier League legends.
And in a completely different way. And you're listening to Sophie Nicolau with Kevin Campbell here on A Conversation With, presented by the Highbury Squad. KC, the fans, pitch invasion.
Yeah.
Talk me through that moment, because I'm claustrophobic. Okay. So the idea of all these people kind of coming at me at one stage, it's very overwhelming. But once they start lifting you on their shoulders, that's a totally different story. Again, you've been part of massive games. You were, Anfield 89 and everything. But that moment, to do that for those fans, and at the end of the day, people underestimate the connection between players and fans. What did that mean, that moment in your career?
Well, it meant history for us all, for not only the players but the fans and the club. You know, West Bromwich Albion Football Club was a Premier League history maker now, and that connection will always be there, because you speak to any West Bromwich Albion fan or anybody who watched because Survival Sunday actually captures the imagination more than what's going on at the top end of the table.
Totally.
You know, so that connection, everybody knows where they were or where they were watching it or where they were listening to it or whatever. Everybody knows where they were as a landmark, as a mark in time. But to do it and to be in that stadium and to be waiting around, because remember the pitch invasion happened, and then we were all waiting around and waiting for the final whistle to go at the Valley. The final whistle went, and the euphoria just started. But for the likes of myself and Brian Robson, I think I had a bottle of champagne in my hand. And I think...
Wait, was it your I was going to come back to that. Was it your expensive champagne or...
No.
Okay.
I'm going to get to the expensive
Okay, good, because that's where I want to go at some point.
Now, I've just put it all over Brian Robson's head because I think it was... if I'm honest with you, I was so proud that he went and got me from Everton, and because I like the challenge, and boy, that was a challenge. And I think it was just sheer relief. We hugged, you know. I still got utmost admiration for Brian Robson even to this day. Still see him as one of the most important guys around my football career, the back end of it anyway. But we done an interview on the pitch, Brian Robson and I, and it was surreal. You know, we floated and we went back like shot. I had my arm around his shoulders and we walked off the pitch and all the crowd were there, etc. And we got into the dressing room. So this was probably half an hour, 40 minutes after the game had finished.
Wow.
So you could imagine. Players had been in the dressing room, they'd celebrated, they'd had beers, champagne and everything.
Euphoria.
So there I think me and Brian Robson we had interviews to do. So we got off the pitch doing interviews. Then we had the BBC and we had Sky and everything interviews to do. So we done them. So it was probably about nearly an hour after the game. That's the first time I got back into the dressing room. And there was hardly anyone in the dressing room when I got back in there. And what did I see on the side? Sophie?
Your champagne. Who's drinking it?
All empty. They were all empty. All empty, bar
the Dom Perignon.
Laurent Perrier Rosé.
Oh, okay.
Which Bamba, bless him, had kept a little bit back behind for me. So I drank it from the bottle and I sat down, I looked at him and I said, Bamba, we did it. And he says, yes, I know, Kev. He said, it's an incredible day. It's an incredible day.
Wow.
And that was it. You know, there was no directors came down. I asked, because the players had gone to the players' lounge and stuff. None of the directors had come down to celebrate with us. The chairman hadn't even come down. And I thought that was crazy. To stay in the Premier League and create history, etc. It was madness. But no, it never happened. But opened a beer with the kit staff and Dave. As
amazing. That staff, the kit staff, the people behind the scenes, Casey, a little bit like what we're seeing in our world today with these heroes who are working those daily jobs, who are, contributing as much as anybody else, without those, characters, without those, aren't they? Like, They are, aren't they?
Sophie, they're the glue. They're the glue. They're the unsung heroes of everything, of football. And Dave the Masseur, who is no longer with us, he was another amazing guy. Loads of times after training, everyone's gone where there's me and him just there, and he's massaging me, and we're talking about the plan and, the mindset. And because these guys have to buy in as well, the kit staff and everyone have to buy into the same mindset. And they've, what do we look out for? What do we recognize? And, if anybody's wavering, you've got to get them back on track as best you can. You've got to make sure they're focused. And, no Billy Big Time, guys. We don't want that. We want everybody just nice and calm. And
KC, a lot of the times there's this saying where, sometimes people think they have to be somewhere for years to have an impact. But, it's not how many years you live, it's what you do with the years you have. And how would you rank that time at West Brom, and where do they fit into your heartstrings, your journey, your experience? I mean, for me, growing up, I know I was an Arsenal fan, but Brian Robson was the kind of player that you wanted in your team. You wanted him to be in your family, let alone in your team, because he was also England captain. He was this hero. Where does it rank? You spent a lot of years at Everton and Arsenal, but you did something incredible at West Brom. And I get choked up a little bit because I used to love West Brom back in the day. I think we all did, because Cyril Regis was just this cool, larger than life, superhero looking guy. And to see you kind of have that moment and you be captain and we've talked a lot about racism in our time and whatever, but to see you lead a team like that, and especially in that moment, even though you spent a short amount of time there, and then you see a legend like Cyril Regis, what does that mean to you, that whole time there, KC?
Well, it means a hell of a lot, because Cyril, Big Cyril who's no longer with us again. He's one of my idols, and growing up as a young boy in the 70s, it was that Brendan Batson and Laurie Cunningham and Big Cyril Regis, and obviously Brian Robson was one of their teammates back then. These are icons of the game, which, a lot of youngsters might not realize who the icons are, but these guys were icons for icons. They were icons for us youngsters back then. And having met Big Cyril at a few West Bromwich Albion games, and, he was just talking about the mentality and, just make sure you stay up. That's the most important thing. He was always on a nice word, always had a nice things to say, was always positive like I am. So, you look at it and I just say to myself, in my career, the Great Escape was the greatest thing I could ever do.
I was going to ask you, you were there, Anfield 89. You've been there for Merseyside derbies. You've played in such great moments, KC. Does that rank as
the
best?
The most important thing I've done in my career.
Wow.
Because
you saved livelihoods, really. Staying up saved that, but the footballing part of it.
Sophie.
Tell me.
It's not only that, Sophie. It's the challenge. It's the challenge. When you're at Arsenal and you come through the ranks and you're part of the club and you love the club, Arsenal's supposed to be challenging. And the likes of George Graham come in and the quality's there, but he starts to give youngsters a chance, and your momentum starts to build, and you can see what's happening at the football club. Arsenal challenging is meant to happen. Everton, a huge club, are meant to still be in the top division. Mm-hmm. How they're in that position was because of monetary problems, etc. But they're still a huge club and shouldn't even have been wallowing down at the bottom echelons of the league. But the likes of West Bromwich Albion and going to the club in January when they're rock bottom and we have to perform a miracle. Everyone together has to buy in. Everyone together has to focus. Everyone together has to have that common goal together and achieve. Because at the end of the day, it's about results. It's about results business. And we've got to be better than the opposition week in, week out over a period in order to survive. And that's what we've done. And to be able to make history with those great lads who not saying everyone's great players and stuff like that, but we had a camaraderie and a togetherness that saw us through. And the Great Escape really is the Great Escape, and it's the greatest thing I've ever been involved in football.
And I have to say, Casey, if ever there was a time to encapsulate your world famous Super Kevin Campbell song and label, that time was absolutely it. To come in and have the impact that you did, and then grab a team by the scruff of the neck, even though, you know, there were good players there, it needed something. And it took a legend like Brian Robson and a legend like you. And when people talk about changing teams, we see it all the time. It was the nucleus to the survival of West Brom, and you guys gave those fans something they will never, ever forget. We will never forget 89. We will never forget the Invincibles year. And there's just certain moments at certain times where managers, players, you know, Leicester City fans, they'll never forget that. And you gave West Brom fans, even though it was a different experience, it was an experience that they'll never, ever forget. And you were really the hub and the nucleus of helping make that happen.
Sophie, can I tell you one story?
I would love another. Yes, absolutely.
One story, and I think this is. We spoke earlier on about the Crystal Palace game, and I mentioned we went to Orlando the next day. So there we were on the plane, and Brian Robson said, lads, you know, take your time. You can have a couple of beers, but that's about it and stuff like that. So we're travelling. And Jeff Horsfield, Neil Clement, Paul Robinson, left back. Me and Paul Robinson were having a laugh and a joke, etc. And I said to Robbo, said, what should we do? What should we do out there? So I said to Robbo, why don't you organise some things for the lads? So he said, me? He says, no, that's not my style. So I said, no, why don't you? I said, take yourself out of comfort zone and you go and organise some things for the lads. So he says, well, how am I going to do that? So I said, have you seen one of these? So I showed him the Centurion American Express, the black metal card. So he said, wow. He said, that's unbelievable. So I said, why don't you take that and then you could organise all the stuff you want? He said, but I'm not you. I says, well, just do it. He ended up having it for a week.
Oh, no.
Right, Sophie. He had it for a week. And there was a specific night where we were allowed out. And Robbo, Clem, Horse, and a couple of lads wanted to get into some bar, apparently. And they were saying, no, you can't get in. And apparently he took this American Express out. And they let them in, and he was ordering champagne and everything. He come over kissing me the next day. Said, "This is the best thing that's ever happened to me."
Oh, great!
This was kind of at breakfast, so you could imagine. And Brian Robson looked at me thinking, what is Cam's doing? But there was method to the madness, because that kind of broke the ice every day, and he was telling us about the escapades, how we could get into places with this card and all that type of stuff. But
that's
I
great.
thought that was, for the group, that was so important to knit us together.
It takes moments like that, doesn't it, Casey? And stories like that, and a little bit of banter, some trust, and the manager having faith in you that you know what you're doing in order to make that okay, right?
Very much so, because it's having the team and the players is one thing, but it's knitting it and sewing it all together, which is the very hard part. And that wasn't everything, but that helped gel us all together. So
wow,
I thought you'd enjoy that one.
Oh, I love I love your stories. They're so good. And this is what fans want to hear. This is what they love. They want to know those moments, when they're cheering you on the stands and they're sitting on their settee, or, wherever they might be following or watching over years. And a lot of these fans, as you know, they pay really good money, hard-earned money to watch football, and they love football. They're missing their football right now.
Big time.
And to me, these conversations are my favorites, because you really kind of get into the heart of some of those experiences that, fans can kind of be a part of. So I'll leave you with this, Casey. If you were to send a message today, because we're going to send this with West Brom fans, what would you like to say to them? Because I think West Brom are the kind of team that are going to bounce back to the Premier League pretty soon.
Well, they're right there, aren't they? At the moment, obviously there's an impasse right now, but I think them and Leeds have been the best teams in the Championship. So, I wish them all the very best. And, it's great to be a part of the history, making history with the club. And I'm sure Slaven Bilic and the players will do them proud if they get there. So fingers crossed that they can see the season out and get them up, which is what they deserve.
And thank you, Super Kevin Campbell, for joining me, Sophie, on a conversation presented by the Highbury squad, and sharing your story of Survival Sunday, probably one of the most exciting days ever that any fan can experience in the Premier League. A lot of the times it's a lot more exciting than the title challenge. And for me, those games and the Championship playoff game, two of the biggest games, just because of what it means and the cost of that to the club and also to fans. So Super Kevin Campbell, captain of West Brom at the time, thank you so much for sharing your story with me.
Thank you, Sophie. You're welcome.
Thank you.